The morning of my birthday, I woke earlier than usual. At 75, sleep doesn't cling the way it used to. The body wakes before the sun, with aches that no blanket can soothe. But that morning, despite the stiffness in my bones, my heart felt lighter. It was my day. My birthday. 4 weeks, I had whispered to myself, they will remember. My daughter, my grandchildren, they will surely remember. I set about tidying the little house. The table was small, with a wobble in one leg, but I polished it until it shone. I laid out the chipped plates I had kept for special occasions. Beside them, I placed spoons polished so many times that their shine had nearly worn away. Then, from a jar hidden in the corner of the cupboard, I took out a small packet of biscuits and a tin of tea I had saved for this day. My pension, barely, stretched to bread and rice, but I had bought them anyway, telling myself, on my birthday, I will serve them with pride. I imagined the laughter of my grandchildren filling the room. I imagined my daughter placing a hand on my shoulder and saying, "Happy birthday, Mama. We couldn't have this day without you." In my mind, I saw us gathered at the table, one family, sharing food, sharing joy. I saw candles flickering, even if only a single one stuck into a plain loaf of bread. I saw my daughter urging me to blow it out, while the children clapped. For days, that picture kept me alive. The knock on the door came mid-morning. My daughter stood there, her scarf pulled tightly around her face. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that hides something behind it. "Happy birthday, Mama," she said quickly, almost breathless. In her hand was a small plastic bag. Inside was a sweet, wrapped in paper. One piece. For me, I took it with trembling hands, thanking her. But before I could invite her in, I saw the hesitation in her eyes. "Mama, we're having a celebration at my house tonight," she said. "The children and their cousins will be there. It will be lively, but it might be too crowded for you. Maybe it's better if you don't come. You can eat something here." The words landed like stones in my chest. My birthday, my table, polished and waiting. My biscuits and tea, prepared with hope. And yet I was told to stay behind, because I was too old, too fragile, too inconvenient. I forced a smile, nodding as though her words made sense. "Yes, yes, child. I understand. You go, enjoy." But inside, my heart whispered, "Do you understand what you are asking? Do you understand that you are leaving me alone on the one day I longed not to be alone?" That evening, I sat at the table anyway. I poured myself tea from the tin I had saved. I placed the biscuits on a plate, though no one else reached for them. I lit a candle, not for celebration, but for company. The room was silent. Only the flame flickered, mocking me with its dance. I thought that was the end of my humiliation, but I was wrong. After my daughter left, I sat by the table I had polished, staring at the biscuits I had laid out as though they were a feast. My hands trembled when I picked one up, but I could not bring myself to eat. Not yet. I closed my eyes, and my mind carried me back through the years, back to when birthdays were not lonely affairs, but bright days stitched together with laughter, even if we had nothing but bread and sugar to share. I remembered her first birthday. Her father was still alive then, though he already coughed too much and worked too hard. We had no money for a cake. Instead, I baked a small round bread, pressing sugar into the top to make it sweet. We placed one candle in the center, a candle borrowed from a neighbor, and lit it with matches so old they nearly snapped. When she blew it out, her father clapped as though it were the grandest cake in the world. I had never seen his eyes so bright. That day, I thought, even with nothing, we have everything. The memory warmed me even now. Though my room was cold, I remembered her 10th birthday. By then, her father was gone, taken too soon, leaving me to raise her alone. I had worked long days in the fields, blistering my hands, just to save a little money. That year, I managed to buy her a small second-hand dress, faded but clean, and a packet of toffees. Her face lit up as she twirled in the dress. "Mama, I look like the girls in town," she said. "The neighbors teased me. Why waste your money on foolish things? She will outgrow it in a year." But I told myself, it is worth every coin to see her smile like that. Then came her 16th birthday. She wanted shoes, proper shoes, like her classmates wore. I had nothing saved, so I sold the only bangle I owned, a thin gold one my mother had given me on my wedding day. When she unwrapped the shoes, she threw her arms around me, crying, "Mama, you're the best." I kissed her hair and told myself, if she is happy, I am rich. Now, as I sat alone on my own birthday, I thought of those sacrifices. I thought of every coin, every meal skipped, every aching muscle endured so she could have joy. And I asked myself, why does she not remember? That evening, the voices from her house carried down the street. Laughter, clapping, children's shrieks. I could hear the thump of music, the chatter of relatives. I rose, leaning against the window frame, and looked toward the glow of her house. The lights spilled out like golden rivers, while my own room sat in shadows. I wanted to walk there, to knock on the door, to say, "It is my birthday. Let me sit with you, even just for one meal." But my legs refused. Pride weighed heavier than hunger. I could not bear the thought of being told again that I did not belong. If this moment broke your heart, please subscribe. It helps these forgotten voices find a place in the world again. I sat back down, alone. The candle on my table had burned low, its wax pooling onto the plate beneath it. The biscuits had gone stale from the air, but I nibbled one anyway, chewing slowly, as though it were a feast, and as I chewed, I whispered to myself, maybe tomorrow she will come. Maybe tomorrow she will say, "Mama, forgive me." Hope is cruel that way. It lingers, even when it knows it is unwelcome. I thought loneliness had reached its depth, but I was wrong. The next day, my daughter came again. She carried leftovers from the party, plastic containers stacked with rice, curry, and pieces of sweet bread. "Here, Mama," she said, placing them on my table. "You can eat this. We had so much last night." I smiled faintly, thanking her, but inside, the words cut deep. Not because of the food, no. I was grateful for that. But because I was not invited to share it fresh, with the family, when the laughter was alive. Instead, I was given what was left behind. Later that week, I overheard them speaking. They thought I was asleep in my room, but their voices carried through the thin walls. "She takes too long to eat. She forgets things. It's embarrassing. When guests see her, she's too old to sit with everyone at the table." Each word was a knife, carving pieces out of my heart. Too old, too slow, a burden at my own table. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stop the sobs from escaping. I did not want them to hear. I did not want them to know that I heard every word. That Sunday, they had a meal together. My daughter called out, "Mama, come eat." My heart lifted. Perhaps they had remembered me. Perhaps they wanted me to sit among them. But when I entered the room, my seat at the main table was already taken. Children giggled, adults leaned close. Plates were already served. There was no chair left for me. I stood there awkwardly, holding the edge of my pale blue dress, waiting. Finally, someone muttered, "Let her sit in the corner. It will be easier." And so a stool was brought, not at the table, but against the wall. A small plate was placed before me. I ate alone while laughter spilled across the room, just out of reach. I wanted to say, "Do you remember the birthdays I gave you? Do you remember the bread with sugar, the dress, the shoes, the bangle I sold, so you could smile? Do you remember how I sat you at the center of the table, never once pushing you aside?" But my tongue refused to move. The words stayed trapped in my chest, heavy as stones. If this moment touched your heart, please share this story. Let the world hear the pain of forgotten mothers. I sat on that stool, chewing slowly, my eyes on the floor. Every laugh, every clink of a spoon, every cheer from the children felt like thunder crashing over me. I was in the same room as them, but I was not part of them. I was near the table, but I was not at the table. And as I swallowed the last bite of food, I told myself, this is what it feels like to disappear while still breathing. That night, when I lay in bed, I whispered to myself, maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe next time they will remember me. Maybe next time they will pull me closer. But hope is cruel that way. I thought the humiliation had reached its end, but I was wrong. A few days later, my daughter hosted another family meal, this time for a cousin passing through town. I heard the clatter of plates, the drag of chairs across the floor, the quick instructions that always come when guests arrive. From my room, I smoothed the folds of my pale blue dress and waited. I told myself, do not hope. Just be ready. But the heart is stubborn. It hopes, even when warned. I stepped into the hallway as they were laying out the dishes. The aroma of spices filled the air, warm and bright. My granddaughter ran past with a handful of forks and nearly bumped into me. She paused, blinked, then smiled out of politeness. Not delight, and hurried on. At the table, two of my daughter's relatives were arranging place cards. I stood for a moment, scanning for my name. I found Uncle R. I found Cousin L. I found Auntie Mina. I did not find mine. I pretended to examine the flowers, as though that had been my intent all along. "Amma," one of the younger women said, noticing me, "we've put a stool for you in the corner near the fan. It's cooler there." The corner again. Always the corner. I nodded and lowered myself onto the stool. From there, I could see everyone, but no one could see me without turning their heads, and very few turned. The fan clicked and whirred above me, chopping the air into pieces. On the wall beside me hung a family photo from years ago. I was in that one, standing behind my daughter, my hand on her shoulder. Back then, my presence had been welcome enough to be framed. They began to eat. Laughter, clinking glasses, someone telling a story about a train that had broken down and how everyone had made friends on the platform. My daughter laughed the loudest. I watched her mouth shape happiness and tried to remember how it felt to be the reason she smiled. Partway through the meal, a relative glanced my way and whispered to another, not softly enough, "She takes too long. The children get restless." The other replied, "And she drops things. Better to keep her by the wall." Their words floated to me like ashlight gray, and settling on my skin until I felt covered in it. When the time for dessert came, a small cake appeared, bright, with candles. It was for the cousin, not for me. That is how it should be, I told myself. Still, the colored flames stung my eyes. Someone shouted, "Sing!" Voices rose in a messy chorus. I did not sing. My throat had no music left as the slices were passed around. A child cut too large a piece and a woman's hand gently corrected it. Not that much, Beta. We must have enough for everyone. When the plate came near me, it veered away at the last second. The count had been exact. We'll bring you later, Oma, someone called over their shoulder. Later is a soft word. That means never, if you wait long enough. I folded my hands and stared at the tablecloth. Pattern, as if it were a map leading somewhere kinder. A man I barely knew took out his phone. Come, group photo. Everyone, squeeze in. Chairs scraped, bodies leaned. My daughter found her place between two cousins. I stayed where I was, expecting nothing. The phone holder looked around, scanning like a shepherd counting sheep. He lifted his chin toward me. Should she come? My son-in-law answered without looking. It's crowded. The room accepted his logic the way fields accept rain. No one questioned. The picture was taken, a rectangle filled with faces bright with a moment I was not allowed to share. When the flash went off, I must have blinked. For a heartbeat I saw light where I sat, as if the photograph reached for me and then withdrew. It's hand, I told myself. You are not a picture. You are a person. And a person can endure. But endurance is a quiet ache that grows heavy when no one notices you carry it. The plates were cleared. Someone spilled water. A cloth rushed to rescue the table. A niece complained about a headache. An uncle told a joke he'd told before. The world spun on as if nothing unusual had occurred, as if seating a mother at the wall were an ordinary arrangement, like putting extra spoons in the drawer, or salt near the stove. When the guests left and the corridor settled into evening, my daughter approached me with a small plate, 2 spoons of rice, a ribbon of sweet, a sliver of cake the size of a thumb. Mama, eat, she said, tired but not unkind. Not unkind. That is the phrase, isn't it? Not unkind, but also not loving. I lifted the spoon, my hand trembled. The food tasted of everything and nothing. I wanted to say, on your 10th birthday, I borrowed sugar and baked you sweet bread. On your 16th, I sold my only bangle for your shoes. On your graduations, I clapped until my palms stung. I placed you at the center of every table I could find. And tonight, I am a shadow on the wall. But my mouth stayed faithful to silence. It is loyal that way. It guards pride even when pride grows too heavy. A cousin drifted back in to fetch her scarf and caught sight of me on the stool. She smiled in the manner people do when they pass a store, mannequin pleasant, brief, distant. Auntie, you must rest. These gatherings exhaust elders, she said. You know how it is. Yes, I know how it is. I rose slowly and set the plate on the corner of the table. The fan still clicked, the air still chopped. Through the window, I could hear a street vendor calling out for late buyers. The sound made me think of markets and mornings and all the years I walked home with groceries because the child at my hip needed feeding. None of that could be seen from the stool. I stepped into the hallway to steady my breath and saw the group photo already shining on a phone screen, passed hand to hand. Laughter circled. Send it, someone said. Send to the family group. A message flew into the air, invisible but quick. Somewhere, in many small rectangles, a moment began to live without me. My daughter reached for her scarf and looked at me finally. Mama, I'll come tomorrow, she said. We'll sit together. Properly, she meant it. Perhaps. People often mean the words they speak, even when they never arrive to carry them out. I nodded. Tomorrow, I said, and the word sounded like a chair pulled back for someone who never sits. If you believe no mother should be pushed to the wall or cropped out of family life, please share this story. Let the world remember the dignity our elders deserve. That night, in my room, I placed my palm flat against the cool wall where my stool had rested. The paint was slightly rough beneath my skin. I tried to measure how far I had been from the table with my fingertips. A hand's breadth, too. What distance turns a mother into an observer? I did not find the answer. I thought the loneliness had finished its lesson. But loneliness had more to teach. A week later, my daughter announced there would be a small celebration for my belated, she said, because the house had been too busy before. I nodded, pretending the word belated did not sting. Late kindness can be kind, I told myself. Let it be kind. That afternoon I watched from my doorway as they prepared. The table was dragged to the center of the room and covered with a bright cloth printed with tiny flowers. Plates were set, glasses aligned like soldiers. A neighbor's boy brought in a cake from the corner bakery, a simple white one with pink icing and my name written in careful loops. I smiled at the sight of my name. It looked shy, as if it had not been called for a long time. My granddaughter slipped into my room, eyes shining. "Nani, there will be balloons," she whispered. She pressed a small paper crown into my palm, crumpled at the points but golden enough. "You should wear it," she said. I kissed her forehead and promised I would. When the guests-only family this time began to arrive, the house quickened. Shoes in the hall, chatter thick as steam, doors opening and closing. I smoothed my pale blue dress and pinned my hair tighter, then stepped toward the living room. "Oma, sit here," my daughter said, guiding me gently but not toward the table. Her hand rested on my elbow only long enough to steer me to the familiar stool by the wall. "You'll see everything from here," she added, like someone choosing the best spot for a spectator. "I could sit at the corner of the table," I offered softly, pointing to a gap that looked wide enough for a narrow chair. "It's crowded today," she said, already turning. Crowded is a polite word. It closes doors without making a sound. I perched on the stool, the paper crown light in my lap. The cake sat in the center of the world that was not mine. Someone dimmed the lights. A phone went up to record. "Ready?" a voice called. They sang. The song began soft and rushed toward its own ending, voices tumbling over the words. I sang a single line with them before my throat caught. My name passed around the circle, bright and brief, and then the room leaned toward the cake. "Make a wish, Oma," my granddaughter cried, turning to where I sat. For a moment, all eyes followed hers. The circle opened just a little. I stood, careful and slow, and took one step, then another. But my son-in-law's hand reached the knife first. "The children are impatient," he said with a smile. "Let them blow with Nani." He beckoned the youngest to forward. They squeezed between the table and the press of bodies, cheeks puffed, lungs ready for joy. "Wait," my daughter murmured, glancing at me. Our eyes met for a breath. "Ma, it's narrow here, be careful. You can watch from there. We'll bring you a slice." She meant it kindly. Kindness can still hurt. The children blew. The candles went dark. Applause burst like small fireworks. Someone clapped near my ear and I flinched at the sound. The knife slid through icing. Pink flowers toppled. Plates made quick circles from hand to hand. When a slice finally reached me, it balanced on a paper plate already soaked with sugar and air. "Not too much cream for Oma," a cousin called helpfully. "It isn't good for elders." Helpful is another word that closes doors. I lifted the paper crown, looked at it, then set it back in my lap. I could not add weight to my head when my chest was already heavy. From the table, a nephew laughed. "Show Nani the video." The recording passed to my daughter, then to my son-in-law, then to a cousin. Laughter again. Someone had smudged frosting on a child's nose. Someone had shouted, "Make a wish," too loud. The phone completed its circle without pausing at my hands. The moment of my birthday moved all around me like water around a stone. "Come, group photo," my daughter said finally. She glanced toward me, then at the tight space behind the chairs. "Ma, stay there. We'll take one with you later." Later, again. The word returned like a bird that never lands. They posed. The flash popped. The picture trapped more faces. My granddaughter wriggled free and ran to me. "Nani, why aren't you in it?" she asked, simply, like only children can. Before I could answer, an adult voice fell gently over hers. "Because Nani gets tired. Beta, sitting there is better for her." The child accepted the reason the way children accept weather, inevitable, nameless. I touched her hair and smiled. "I am better here," I said. The lie tasted of sugar. The room brightened again with talk. Someone told the old joke about birthdays and candles. Someone else pretended to steal the last cherry and then gave it back. I ate my thin slice slowly, as if time would thicken if I chewed long enough. "Careful, Amma," a woman murmured when I reached for a glass. "You might spill." I set my hand back in my lap. Around me, the table rang with tiny feasts of sound, the sing of a spoon against glass, the scrape of a plate, the swift little hush of a secret. Sound can be food if you are hungry enough. It is not the kind that fills. My daughter came with a plate of savory snacks and crouched by my stool. "Eat," she urged, placing two in my palm. Her face was tired, not unkind. "Next time we'll arrange better," she said. "You know how it is when the house is full." "I know," I said. And I did. Full houses can be empty, too. She rose before I could form another sentence and was pulled back into the current of the room. In the corner, the paper crown waited on my lap, a small golden mountain with no head to claim. If you believe no elder should be told there isn't space for them, especially on their own birthday, please like this video. It helps more people see the truth of forgotten mothers and grandmothers. A little later, the children drifted to the corridor to play. Their laughter softened, like bells heard from far away. The adults sank into smaller conversations. The cake collapsed on its platter, pink icing wilting like flowers in heat. I stood, slowly, balancing with my palm against the wall. "Ma, where are you going?" my daughter asked. "To my room," I said. "I'm a little cold." "Take a shawl," she suggested. She did not offer to bring one. I liked that. It made the moment honest. In my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and counted my breaths. The paper crown still rested on my lap. I lifted it, careful, and set it on the table where my name had once been written on a plate and then eaten. The crown glowed faintly in the thin light coming through the curtain. A small, brave sun. I left it there. From the living room came the rustle of plastic, the soft chime of forks stacked, the tired satisfaction of a gathering folding itself away. I listened until the house sighed. I told myself, they celebrated me the way they know how. I will honor myself the way I must. I pressed my hand flat to my chest and felt the tired drum there. It answered, present. It always has. I thought, this birthday had spent all its sorrow, but the night held one more candle. Night settled over the house like a shawl no one offered me. From my room, I could hear the faint scrape of chairs. the swish of a broom. The small weary jokes people make when a gathering ends. Dishes chimed once, twice, and then fell silent. The corridor exhaled. The day closed itself softly, as if not to wake anyone who mattered. I remained on the bed a long time, hands folded in my lap, looking at the paper crown I had left on the table. It caught a thread of streetlights sneaking through the curtain and glowed like a promise made long ago and half remembered. My granddaughter slipped in without knocking. Children still know how to enter a room with their whole hearts. She climbed onto the bed beside me and leaned her warm shoulder into mine. "Nani," she whispered, "I saved this for you." From her fist she uncurled a single candle, white, thin, bent slightly from the heat of the cake. "Blow it, now. I'll sing." I smiled. "We will sing together," I said, quietly, "so the house can rest." She nodded gravely, as if we were keeping a sacred rule. I set the candle in an empty teacup, the only holder I had, and she struck a match with careful, serious hands. The flame licked up, small and bright, and for a moment the room remembered how to be warm. We sang only the first line. A small song is enough when the heart is full and tired. Then I closed my eyes and made a wish that was not a wish at all, but a blessing put into a shape the world understands. "Will you tell me your wish?" she asked. "It is the same wish I have every year," I said. "That all the people I love will be brave and kind, and that I will remain brave and kind with them." She considered this the way children test a new word on their tongue. "You are," she said. "You are brave and kind." Then she slid off the bed, kissed my cheek, and patted out. The door left slightly open like a soft light. When she was gone, I lowered my face toward the flame and blew. The little light trembled and went out. Smoke curled up and became a line I could almost follow with my finger. I sat listening for her steps. But another sound reached me, laughter from the living room, not sharp. Just the soft laughter of people who have finished a task and found a corner of comfort. A phone buzzed, then sang. A man's voice said, "Send it to the family group." Another voice added, "Right, happy birthday to our dearest." The rest blurred, but I understood. A photograph, a caption, a message launched into the night like a small boat leaving a shore. I imagined the picture they sent, the table, the cake, the circle of faces leaning in toward each other. I imagined the caption, "Family is everything." It is easy to say a sentence when you do not have to include everyone inside it. A moment later, my own phone, old, stubborn, with a cracked corner, clicked awake on the bedside table. The family group's bright banner filled the screen. The new photo gleamed. Hearts bloomed beneath it like flowers that grow only in gardens you never walk. I enlarged the image until the pixels made tiny square clouds. I scanned each face. I did not find mine, though I had been in the room when the moment happened. I touched the glass with my thumb and it gave me back only my reflection. Thin and tired. Someone wrote, "Love you, Ma." Another, "Best birthday ever." The words were not untrue, perhaps. Perhaps it had been the best they could make with the time and space they allowed themselves. Perhaps love was in there, only arranged in ways I could not sip aside. I set the phone face down. The room returned. On the table, the paper crown waited. I lifted it and placed it gently on the lamp. There, it made a little halo around the light. I thought, if no head can wear you, then light can. Some things deserve to shine, even if no one claps. I opened the window a finger's width. Night air came in. It smelled of dust and leaves, and the last sugar of a cake that was once bright and now a plate of crumbs. I could hear the street vendor again, softer, as if even his shout had grown modest with the hour. Beyond him, somewhere far away, a dog barked and then remembered it was night and stopped. I reached for my old box of photographs and rested it on my knees. The lid creaked like an old friend sitting down beside me. I lifted out a picture from the year my daughter turned 5. She had a crown folded from newspaper, tilted on her hair. We had drawn stars on it in blue pen. In the photo, our mouths were open midlof. It had not mattered then that the crown was paper or that the cake was bread. It mattered that we were two faces lit by the same small flame. I played that photo next to one from her 12th year, a cheap studio portrait with a painted garden behind us. My dress was the same pale blue as tonight. I had never noticed that before. The seam at the shoulder puckered in both pictures, the way my life puckered sometimes but held. I said aloud to the empty room, "You carry me," and it did not feel foolish to say it to pictures. Memory is a country where the language for love is simple and everyone understands. My phone buzzed again. A private message from my daughter. "Ma, today was hectic. We'll plan better next time. Love you." The words were small and tired, but they were not untrue. I looked at them a long while and typed back, slowly, "Love you. Rest well." I erased a sentence that wanted to explain what love looks like and kept only the part that keeps doors open. Turned the lamp down to a patient glow and sat straight, palms resting on my knees. I let the quiet speak. It said, "You are here." It said, "You did not vanish." It said, "This house remembers your name even when captions do not." I could have closed the night there. It would have been enough. A candle in a cup, a child's kiss, a message sent and received. Enough to walk into sleep with. But sleep waited, and with it arrived a thought I had not invited, a sharper one, walking on thin feet. It asked a question that did not use words. If they believe you cannot sit at the table, how long before they believe you cannot speak for yourself? The question placed its hand on my shoulder, the way you test a door for weakness. I felt the latch inside me lift. I rose, despite the ache, and reached for my shawl. I wrapped it over my shoulders and knotted the ends like a promise. On the table, I left the crown on the lamp and the photographs in a neat pile, as if arranging witnesses. I opened my door and stepped into the corridor where the house had gone quiet. The living room light was off now, the phones asleep, the group photos still traveling on its secret roads. The hall clock ticked, a small brave sound. I walked toward my daughter's door and paused, listening to the soft rhythm of sleep on the other side. I raised my hand to knock. I thought this night had used all of its candles, but there was a match still waiting in the dark. If you believe elders should never be edited out of the family picture online or at home, please share this story. Let kindness trend louder than silence. I stood outside her door, shawl pulled tight, palm hovering above the wood. The tick of the hallway clock kept steady time, patient, almost daring me to wait too long. My hand trembled not from weakness, but from the weight of what I carried. At last I knocked, once, twice, softly, the sound of shifting blankets, a groan, then her voice, drowsy. "Who is it?" "It's me," I answered. "It's your mother." There was a pause. Then the door creaked open, a hand's width. Her face appeared, tired and pale from the long day. Behind her, the room glowed faintly with a nightlight, casting shadows on the walls. "Mama," she whispered. "Is everything all right?" I nodded, though the nod carried more than she could see. "I just wanted to speak before the night grows older." She stepped aside, and I entered. The air smelled faintly of talcum powder and the sweetness of leftover cake. A blanket lay crumpled on the bed, a child's small shoe beneath the chair. Life lived here, messy and warm. And yet, somehow, I had been told there was no space for me. I sat carefully on the edge of the chair near her bed. She pulled her shawl tighter and perched at the other end. For a long moment, we said nothing. The silence had teeth, sharp and familiar. Finally, she spoke. "Mama, today was hectic. You know how children are, how guests are. Sometimes things get missed. Don't think we don't care?" Her words were soft, but they were wrapped in excuses. Excuses are thin blankets, they cover only what the speaker wishes to hide. I looked at her, my daughter, whom I had carried in my womb, whom I had carried on my back, whom I had carried through grief and hunger and endless storms. "I don't think you don't care," I said slowly. "I think you forget. You forget that once, you were the child who sat in the center of my table. You forget that once, I was not too old to be proud of." Her lips parted, but no words came. She lowered her eyes to her hands. I heard them. I continued. My voice did not rise. It flowed, calm as water cutting stone. I heard them say I was too old to sit at the table. I heard them say I eat too slow. I heard them say it is better to keep me in the corner. Do you know what it feels like to hear that on your own birthday? She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook, whether with guilt or sorrow. I could not tell. "Mama, I didn't mean." I raised my hand gently. "I know you didn't mean to, but meaning is not enough. Love without respect is only pity, and I do not want pity. I want dignity." The word filled the room, steady as the tick of the clock. For a moment, she looked up, her eyes wet. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, almost like a child again. "Remember me," I said simply. "Not as an old woman who slows your meals, but as the mother who gave you every meal you ever ate. Remember me not as a shadow in your photographs, but as the reason you had moments to capture. Remember me enough to give me one chair, one slice of cake, one place among you." Her tears slid down. She whispered, "I'm sorry." I reached across the space and placed my hand over hers. My palm was rough, hers smooth, but warmth still passed between us. "I don't want sorry," I said. "I want you to live in such a way that one day, when your child looks at you, they will not think you are too old for their table." If this moment touched your heart, please share this story so no mother has to beg for her dignity in her own home. We sat together a long time, neither speaking. The house was quiet, the night stretched wide. At last, she rose, pressed her forehead lightly against mine, and whispered, "Good night, Mama." "Good night, child," I replied. I left her room quietly, the shawl snug around my shoulders. In the hallway, the clock still ticked, steady, patient, but something inside me had shifted. When I returned to my own room, I lit the lamp once more. The paper crown still glowed faintly around its flame. The photographs lay neatly where I had left them. I sat on the bed and exhaled a long, slow breath. For the first time in many nights, my silence did not feel like defeat. It felt like choice. They might give me a stool, but I could choose to sit with dignity. They might forget to call me into pictures, but I could choose to frame myself in memory. They might tell me I was too old for the table, but I could choose to remain strong enough to speak, and that choice, that dignity, was mine to keep. I thought the night had spent its last candle, but even in ashes, light lingers. The night slipped into dawn, quiet and unhurried. Pale light crept across my floorboards, painting the cracks silver. I had not slept, but I did not feel weary. My chest was lighter, as though speaking had emptied the stones I had carried too long. I poured water into a cup and drank slowly. The chill steadied me. Then I opened the window wider, letting the morning air sweep in. Outside, birds called to one another. A vendor pushed his cart, its wheels squeaking with effort. The world was moving again, and so was I. I walked to the mirror. The pale blue dress I had worn the night before still hung from its hook, wrinkled, yes, faded, yes, but still intact. I touched it with my fingertips and whispered, "You have carried me through many days, and you will carry me still." On the table, the paper crown remained perched on the lamp. Its little golden peaks shone against the light bulb, a halo for a room too often ignored. I smiled at it. For a moment, it almost smiled back. Beside it lay the stack of photographs I had left as witnesses. I lifted the top one, the birthday with the bread cake, the candle borrowed from a neighbor, my young face beside hers, both of us laughing with mouths wide, the world too small to contain our joy. I pressed the photo to my chest. "That was real," I whispered. "No one can erase what was real." I thought of mothers everywhere, women who gave their children the best slices of bread while they chewed crusts, women who sewed patches onto their children's clothes while their own garments frayed, women who sold their last jewelry, their last coin, their last strength, to see their children smile. How many of them sit today on stools in corners, told they are too old, too slow, too much of a burden? How many are cropped out of photographs but not out of history? I spoke aloud, though no one else was in the room. To the daughters who forget, remember, your mother carried you before anyone else even knew your name. She bent her back so you could stand tall. If you push her away, you do not free yourself, you only erase your own roots. And to the mothers like me, hold your head high, even if they seat you in corners, even if they give you crumbs, even if they call you too old. Remember, dignity is ours to keep. They can refuse us chairs, but they cannot take our worth. We are mothers. We are the beginning of their stories. If you believe every mother deserves respect, press like and comment respect below. Let no story of sacrifice remain unheard. I sat by the window, crown still glowing on the lamp, photographs safe in their box, and let the morning wash over me. The silence no longer stung, it rested gently, like an old friend who knows when not to speak. Yes, they had told me I was too old to sit at the table, but I was not too old to remember, not too old to love, not too old to carry my dignity into another day, and that, I realized, was my true gift.